selling it in this big package.
There's the package, and so this tube here, it came with two 60 ml bottles, 70 ml.
Remember 70 ml.
Sriracha bottles. So there was two 70 ml bottles in there, and then a plastic unicorn bottle. Who remembers unicorns? And a black little dropper.
Just the square one.
Yeah.
There wasn't even any juice in there, was there? Just like, so you can have your nice fancy bottle for the ultimate frozen tropics experience.
It was so funny, and then and it had this cool label. And so, like, you can't really get how awesome this package was because all the gold was all shiny.
It was only available in 140 mils.
Yeah, it was just.
And that's it. Yeah. If you want to buy it, you go big.
And people bought we sold a lot.
We sold a lot, but it wasn't good because it was like we lost money pretty much.
It was terrible. There was no margins in those packages. I remember just that tube, like that plastic thing, was like $3 or $2 or something.
Yeah, and then the cap was another $1 or $2.
It was extreme, and then the label, that one big long label, was like a good 75 cents for that because it was just like a short run, random. Anyways.
Now, by the time Frozen Tropics had come out, were you still smoking at all, or were you fully off onto the vaping?
By that time, I was fully off. I had stopped. What actually got me off of smokes was when I started dripping. So when I first started making juice, that's really when it started. I really started quitting because before that I was mainly using the little pen, and so
it's a low power even the freebase when that high 18 plus milligram, it was so harsh you didn't really want to take a few puffs. So I could totally see a 3 milligram in the high power device would give you that delivery you were looking for.
Yeah, it was good.
I remember it was like the first time actually it was like satisfied was with a dripper the tube. And I was like, I remember the first time, like, holy fuck, that thing's like a cannon. And then I didn't know what it was called. I just called it the cannon.
That was the first testing device.
Nicotine is pretty interesting, the way it works and how it's absorbed, and the more we're getting into these the salt nicks.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that nicotine, it's been villainized a lot more than it really should be. You know, in my opinion, like it of course is an addictive stimulant, but it's not. It's been tarnished. The name has been tarnished because it's been thrown in with cigarettes. Like imagine someone put caffeine in a cigarette, it would have the same kind of thought as nicotine. The perception people have of nicotine. You say nicotine, and right away they think cigarettes, they think dying, they think all this stuff. I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about, or tell us some of the background on like what nicotine is. What is it made of? What does it do to your body?
So when you smoke a cigarette, the nicotine, a lot of it actually passes through your mouth and basically your mouth and your tongue, and then it goes into your body. It gets absorbed through your lungs, and then it gets filtered out through the kidneys. Long story short, I guess you piss it out in your pee.
Wow.
So it kind of goes through your body within 10 to 20 seconds. It gets to your brain, and you really start feeling that that initial head rush. It gets metabolized by the liver, so your whole body really takes in this nicotine. And when it does take in this nicotine, your brain releases adrenaline and dopamine. And that's really why we like our nicotine, is because the dopamine and adrenaline that it kind of releases in your body. Going to salt nicks now. Salt nicotine is very similar to nicotine. The difference is the acid. So the reason it's called a salt is because when you combine an acid and a base, it becomes a salt. And so nicotine is actually more on the basic side. So it has a pH of above 7. So when you mix in the acid, it becomes more neutral, and so your body can take it in easier. It comes into your bloodstream faster, and it's much smoother.
I was gonna say, it is much smoother being that more at that more base or neutral balanced level, which is why we've been able to go to these higher salt strengths instead of back in the day when we had it's like almost in a full circle. Whereas we go from the little devices to your high power back to the low power, but now we're really able to answer the call for those long-term smokers because you're getting your mouth to lung experience, you're getting that quick delivery, and you're able, because you have that quick delivery, because of these high levels we're able to achieve due to the smoothness of bringing that pH balance in check.
And the devices like the Breeze do a really good job of delivering the nicotine as well as delivering some form of flavor.
Yeah.
So you're not fully just, oh, it's just nicotine. Because a lot of times people often are stuck, you know, am I going for flaving or am I going for the nicotine and vaping? And so that's really a nice thing with the nic salt versus a few years ago, if you're going for that nicotine, you're getting nicotine. But like the amount of flavor was garbage. You're like, oh, I think there's blueberries maybe. Like there was no flavor. And so it's interesting to see the full cycle. But personally, I think that the flavor side of vaping won't go away, and I think that the large devices will stay around just because the flavor. You know, I think a lot of people, it will really resonate with them. For me, myself, again, it was the dripping that got me on, and it was the finding the right flavor. I didn't want just the nicotine. I wanted a flavor that spoke to me that I can vape all day.
In regards to the salt nicotine, there's many trigger words that people hear like acid and benzoic acid. We'll have a more detailed segment on that and some of the risks to do with certain acids, and there's a lot to it. So we will touch base on that maybe next episode or the one after. So do stay tuned about that. There's a lot to talk about salt nicotine and what you should be looking out at.
The other thing was the way that people villainize nicotine is that they tie in these random things that don't have anything to do with it. Things like popcorn lung. They often say, oh, if you start vaping, you're going to get popcorn lung. And so they don't actually say the truth about it. They don't say, it's one of those things, like if you actually start looking into the facts behind some of these myths, it's bizarre that they would even make that claim. Like, for example, popcorn lung. There's diacetyl in butter. There's vaporized butter in the air when you're making popcorn in a popcorn factory. And so a number of years ago, there was a few people that they got something called popcorn lung, but they were working in a popcorn factory, breathing in vaporized butter.
Headquarters, like all they do is like huge vats year round. It started and ended their career in this factory.
And it's so funny that cigarettes have way more deaths.
It was like 1,300, 11. I think it was like in the 4-figure range. How much more it had?
Yeah, and no smoker has ever gotten popcorn lung. So, and a lot, people have smoked. There's some people that smoked for like 70 years, and so there's a lot of trigger words, and it's very frustrating. But with education, of course, people get more educated, I guess.
I remember there's this really interesting study, a little off topic. It was a university had done a study in the U.S. Where they had rats, obviously, and they had two controls. They had one with just nicotine and tobacco with nicotine. Every single one, 10 out of 10 times, went to the tobacco with nicotine. They didn't care for the nicotine by itself, which was really interesting.
And like even when I quit smoking and I started vaping, it did take willpower to actually make that change.
Yeah.
Cigarettes have other chemicals like antidepressants and stuff, and so you gotta watch out for that.
What about you guys? What's your experience been with nicotine? Especially for those who are dual users of freebase and both like freebase and nic salt. Have you noticed anything? Have you noticed anything different? I know that from speaking with a lot of stores, they're seeing a lot more conversions. People are really staying off the cigarettes. Yeah.
Because salt nicks are, I feel it's a lot closer of a hit to cigarettes, and also for cigarettes, when a person takes that smoke, it's actually the first puff that they really need. All the rest of the puffs are just kind of, it's that first puff that's this good, and the rest are like, it's a very steep and,
and that does make a lot of sense why this salt mix has been so effective. Because that first hit blast, that really sets the whole course.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, yes, Ryan, you should definitely send your Asian here. You should also come down here one of these days. Check it out. We'll do a little feature, try some stuff, have some fun with it.
Ryan knows I was running around doing the back end.
That's just it. All right, guys. For our next thing here, we actually got our guest Jay coming in. I have a few questions for him.
Jay, why don't you do intro? So we're going to be bringing him on. Why don't you give us a little intro on yourself, Jay?
I started in box about 9 years old, and I was quite exceptional at it. I won a number of Canadian titles, 4 consecutive Canadian titles, 5 consecutive provincial titles. Ultimately, I took 20 years off of boxing almost, decided to try my luck at it again. Along the way, I realized that I had to ultimately get bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. So along the way, I decided that I wanted to become a personal trainer. Ultimately, it was self-interested at the most.
That's good. So
Yeah.
what made
I
you
wanted it for
choose
myself. I
that?
wanted
Sorry,
to have
what
myself stronger, faster, bigger, and along the way, I kind of learned that I felt good about the work that I was doing, trying to help other people as well. So I developed my passion and purpose ultimately. I started running a boxing club a couple of blocks from this place. A few months into it, I started to realize that it was definitely difficult to try and do personal training at a boxing club. Ultimately, I realized that it's also a challenge to do boxing at a big facility like this. But the failures, the setbacks that I've had along the way ultimately put me in a position where I was mentally, physically, and emotionally strong enough to keep moving forward and to build my business. When I was all by myself last year, independent, I had to build my whole business, clients, the whole 9 yards. So I understand the challenges that a small guy out there faces versus the guy that comes and joins the company. There's a different set of challenges with the company as well. And so had I realized how much selling yourself was part of the job here at Steve Nash, I probably would not have come up here originally. So fortunately, I was able to step outside of my comfort zone and challenge myself as an entrepreneur, as a trainer, to grow and to continue my journey. And so that's kind of what brought me up here to Steve Nash. The last day on the job at the boxing club, oddly enough, turned into the first day on the job here, fortunately. So that's how I came to be personal trainer at Steve Nash Fitness Road in Surrey.
So what made you choose the job that relies heavily on work ethic rather than the usual 9 to 5?
I did was pretty much achieve that. In my career, I've never worked up to 9 to 5 because I wanted to be a boxer. At 9.5 years old, I decided I wanted to be a heavyweight champion of the world one day, and everything I did was pretty much achieve that. In my career, I've never worked a 9 to 5 job. I've always worked a job where work ethic ultimately gets you where you need to be. I believe at the end of the day, I'm my own business, and I'm going to go as far as I'm going to take myself, and I can't expect anybody else to be there to hold my hand, to save me, to rescue me. I'm going to have to make it happen.
So, what do you do every day to push your business?
I work 60-hour work weeks minimum. I spend at least 60 hours a week in this gym. I'd say probably 45 of those hours, I'd like to think, are pretty close, are focused on specifically training people. A lot of my downtime I spend off the clock, not getting paid, making sure that I'm addressing clients' needs, evaluating their progress, looking at programs, looking at forecasting what the next need I have for my business is, making sure that I'm fit. I have a saying, never have the trainer in worse shape than the client. So quite simply, I have to make sure that my body is in tip-top shape because I never know when one of my clients is going to call me out.
And what kind of advice would you give to those who are trying to become more influential in the way that you are?
I work 60-hour work weeks minimum. I spend at least 60 hours a week in this gym. I'd say probably 45 of those hours, I'd like to think, are pretty close, are focused on specifically training people. A lot of my downtime I spend off the clock, not getting paid, making sure that I'm addressing clients' needs, evaluating their progress, looking at programs, looking at forecasting what the next need I have for my business is, making sure that I'm fit. I have a saying, never have the trainer in worse shape than the client. So quite simply, I have to make sure that my body is in tip-top shape because I never know when one of my clients is going to call me out. If somebody trying to follow in my footsteps, it's just to know that it's a hard road out there and that quite simply nobody's going to want it as much as you do. Every day that you get up, it's going to be your responsibility to do your road work. It's going to be your responsibility to get to the gym. It's going to be your responsibility to make sure you're taking care of your body. The times that your friends are out there hanging out on the weekends, those are the times that you need to be in the gym. Those are the times that you need to be hitting your school books. Those are the times that you need to be grounded in your family. Ultimately, Boxing is a cruel sport that is unforgiving, that loves nobody. It is scandalous, it is heartless, it will rip your heart out. If you do not have incredibly thick skin, you will be one of those people along the road that had a ton of talent that just fell victim to a 9-to-5 or whatever else. I'm here in this gym today because if I did it any other way, my dream of being a heavyweight champion of the world would probably die.
Awesome. So that concludes it. Back to Jay for his final comment, and thank you so much for pulling through and being a guest on the show.
For our viewers out there, if you guys want to be guests, you want to come on, definitely reach out to us. We love hearing the comments. Thank you everyone for watching, and all the feedback we've been getting over the last couple of weeks has been amazing. So,
what's the flavor of the week?
They already know. Frozen Tropics again.
Shit.
All the frozen tropics.
No original. The Frozen Tropics compliant, regulation compliant. Again, every time we do the show, we always do the flavor of the week. FOTW discount code.
15% for retail, and even in wholesale, 5% off.
Make sure you guys check that out. Give that one a shot. It's still is all day. Especially those who like stuff good on your coils. There's no sweetener in that, but it still gives you that nice little sweetness to it. Amazing on your coils. They last
Super
way
smooth
too long.
too.
Well, that was good, guys. Appreciate you tuning in again. And next week we'll come with some more content. Looking forward to seeing you. Peace.